Welcome to episode 63 of Board Game Blitz, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, and a podcast about all things board games that you can listen to in less time than it takes to teach a group of new players how to play Vast for the first time. Board Game Blitz is sponsored by Grey Fox Games. This week, we're talking about games with unique victory conditions. First, we discuss a couple games we've played recently, like the Enigma Emporium Presents Wish You Were Here, and the app version of Stockpile. Then, we talk about games where your goal isn't just about having the most victory points. Finally, we wrap things up with a look at the etymology of the word unique. And now, here are your hosts,
Ambie
and Crystal.
I got a review copy of a new puzzle game called the Enigma Emporium Presents Wish You Were Here. So the game is called Wish You Were Here, and the company is the Enigma Emporium, but I guess the whole title is what I said before.
They want to make sure that their company name is out there, everywhere, going places.
Yeah. So Wish You Were Here is currently on Kickstarter, but I got an early review copy, and I actually wrote a blog review on the website, so you can check that out if you want to read it and see pictures of it. But it is a puzzle game, so it's kind of like an escape room game, but there's no time limit, and you can use the materials they give you, which are physical materials, and also the internet. So you can search things online, and they have some puzzles that have to do with that, which is kind of neat. It's a similar concept to Dispatch by Breakout, which I've discussed on the podcast before, except Dispatch was a subscription service, which got expensive. But the Enigma Emporium company, they're just one-time puzzles and you pay the upfront cost. So Wish You Were Here it's just 5 postcards. So I think on Kickstarter it's $12 for the whole thing, which is, I think, a pretty affordable price. But
yeah, that does sound pretty affordable.
So the reason it's so cheap is because the contents, it comes in an envelope and it's 5 postcards, double-sided, color, so they're nice quality postcards. But they can do all of the puzzles on the postcards. So the puzzles are a lot of ciphers and stuff. I can't tell you what everything is for spoilers, but it's an open-ended game. There's no instructions that I got, just the postcards with puzzles, and some of them have letters that you figure out after you decode it, and it tells you a story. So I took the postcards with me on my commute to work. I take a shuttle to work, and I brought a notebook to take notes in. And it's very portable, and I'm just playing it by myself, and I have my phone for the internet. Some of the puzzles you might want a computer to be able to type things out, because some cipher puzzles, it's easier to type out to have a computer solve it for you, because sometimes it takes a lot of manual labor otherwise. But I liked it. I liked the puzzles. They were all different, and there were 4 or 5 puzzles on each postcard. So that's 20 to 25, and then an overall puzzle. And it had a story that went together. The story wasn't super fleshed out because it's a small thing, and compared to Dispatch, which had multiple months worth of content, or an escape room that has more decorations, this was less of a story, but a lot of puzzles, which I enjoyed. So if you like cipher type puzzles, then you should probably check out Wish You Were Here by the Enigma Emporium.
Yeah, I mean, even the escape rooms that have a story, I should clarify, the escape room games that have a story, it's, oh, I'm an evil person and I've trapped you in my cabin.
Yeah, I guess the story
you'll never
was
get
more
out. So it's
Yeah, so this one, I guess the story was probably more story than that, but just less decoration, because in escape rooms they have more decoration. So this had story between that and Dispatch, but no, not really any decoration. It's just 5 postcards. But it had some online stuff.
So taking into consideration its size and cost, how would you rank this against the other games that you've played, like Dispatch or some of the escape room games? If you factor that part in, because obviously if cost were no object, I imagine, the ones that are more fleshed out and more elaborate would probably come out on top. But if you had to use cost and size.
Yeah, I definitely like it more than Dispatch. I actually stopped Dispatch and threw it away, so
Yeah, it feels
so
like
I'm not doing that.
a whole bunch of people got very excited about Dispatch and then very quickly just stopped talking about it.
Because I think the concept was great, but this actually does the concept better. Not as much story, but more on the puzzle side, which I like, because I like doing puzzles. And so you do a puzzle and then there's immediately another one to do. So you just keep doing puzzles the whole time, which is cool. Oh, it also has a hint system online, which is nice. I used it a couple times, but I also looked through all of them afterwards to see if they're good hints, which I think they're good. So that's nice. But yeah, I like it. I don't know about, like, compared to the escape room games, I think I like the exit games more.
Okay.
Still. Because but it's a different experience. Because this one I played by myself. I don't think I would play this with a group. But the escape room games, I like working with a group more. So that's more like the stress of solving a puzzle quickly with your friends, whereas this one is more laid back and you're just solving puzzles by yourself. Or that's what I did.
In theory, it would be nice, like, especially for you, like, on your commute, you can pull it out, solve a puzzle or two, and then just put it back in your bag and then pull it out again later. Whereas those escape room things are kind of, you have to play them in one shot, generally. So this gives you a little more flexibility in how you want to play it, too. Mm-hmm. That's cool. I'm glad that they sent over a copy. So thank you to the folks over at the Enigma Emporium for being willing to toss that over to us. I'm a little bit jealous, I won't lie. That's the problem with us being in two different cities. Man, if you and I lived together, we would probably, like, we've gotten reached out to a couple of times from different companies wanting to send us review copies of games, but we often turn people down either because we're not certain we'll be interested in it or because it just feels weird, especially when we had 3 hosts, to accept a game, but then only have one of us play it. Because truthfully, we do like to be able to have, meaningful discussions on the show, especially if it is for a review of a game that's more formal. And unfortunately, we don't get to do that often. But fun fact, you and I are going to be together a couple of times in the next few months because we've got BGG Con coming up soon. And then 2 months after that, we've got the Dice Tower Cruise.
And then, it's weird that it's 2 months because it's a whole calendar year.
Right? And then just 2 months after the Dice Tower Cruise, we've got Dice Tower West. So in the next 6 months, you and I are going to see each other more often than usual. So I suppose if anybody does have a review copy they want us both to look at, this is maybe a good time to reach out. I don't know. We don't need review copies of games, for the record. But yeah, it'll be nice because we don't get to play games together that often. So cool. So I actually want to talk about a game that I've discussed briefly on the show before, and that is Stockpile. Stockpile came out originally in 2015 from Navu Games, and I discussed it in episode 39, which was our top 5 surprises. This game was number 1 on my top 5 surprises list because I did not expect to like it, and I loved it. So I'm actually going to talk about the new app version of Stockpile that just came out a couple of weeks ago. But since I've never fully discussed how Stockpile works, I'll give a brief overview of that. In Stockpile, it is a pretty straightforward and streamlined stock market manipulation, insider trading type game. All of the players are trying to make the most money by gaining stocks and using their information about the stock market fluctuations to try and sell stocks at the best time. It's the whole, buy low, sell high kind of mentality. And every round, players get to help decide where the cards that come out that have different companies on them are going to go. And then players bid on the stockpiles where those cards went. And then every round, everybody knows one piece of information about the stock market communally, and then everyone has a secret piece of information. So you'll know if Bottom Line Bank is going up 2 points this round. Maybe everybody knows that, but you'll secretly know that Stanford Steel is going down 4 points this round. And so you can use that information, especially if you're like at the end of a round, because everybody sells stocks in turn order at the end of a round. And if you're the last one to go and you know something's about to tank, you can sell all your stocks and get money. And then if a stock fully bottoms out, anyone that has those cards has to discard them. If a stock hits the top of its track, then the stock splits and all of the stocks that you have of that specific type become doubled in value, essentially. There's some other nuance in there, but that's kind of the gist of it. It's fairly simple and it sounds boring, truthfully. Like, I don't understand how this game is so magical, but I really love it. And so when I heard that a new app version of it had come out, and it was right before I left for my cruise, I was like, I looked and it was like, oh, $4.99. And I was like, I already own the board game and I play it sometimes. And do I really need to spend another $5 on an app? And then I was like, well, we're going on the cruise. I'm going to have some downtime. Well, sure, I'll buy it. This is the best $5 I've spent in a while. This app is so good. I have not found any noticeable bugs yet, and it's brand new. The gameplay is really quite smooth, and I'm playing on an iPhone X, so my screen is not tiny, but it's also not large, and I don't have any issues manipulating the things in the app. It shows the stock tracks pretty clearly, even though they're kind of small. And it has all of the content from the expansion as well. And that's free. Like, I know a lot of board game apps, like, give you the base game and then you have to pay more to get the expansion content. Not so here. When you buy the $5 app, you get the base game, you get the expansions, and all of the modules you can select them individually. So you can play with whichever modules you want. It has a bunch of different AIs of different skill levels, everything from easy to hard, and they have like 3 different hard AIs. Obviously, not being able to see the back end of the app, I can't tell you for sure if those hard AIs are programmed to act differently from one another. You know, they're definitely hard. Like, I'm good at this game, I think. I'm pretty good at it, and I can't beat them sometimes, like, no matter what I do. But yeah, I think as far as apps of board games go, this is probably one of my all-time favorites. I've played it so much, and it wasn't just because I was on a cruise, although that definitely factored in, because, like, any of the apps that I have to be connected to the internet for, I could not play. But yeah, so if you are a person who likes app versions of board games, definitely check out Stockpile. I cannot speak to how easy it is to learn the game from the app. They do have a very clear tutorial mode, but I kind of blazed through it and just looked at what you need to do within the app itself, since I already understand the mechanics of the game. So I can't speak to how easy it is to learn the game itself from the app, but maybe some of our listeners on Twitter can chime in. If you have got the Stockpile app and had never played the Stockpile board game before, tweet at us and let me know if it was easy to learn the game, and then I'll retweet you so our listeners can get that information, because it's hard for me I can't, go back in time. So I don't have those powers.
So did you play mostly single player, or have you played multiplayer at all?
So it does have local multiplayer in the app. I don't think it has asynchronous online play. I'm going to pull it up right now and look just in case. But I believe it's just... Here, let's see. Oh, no, there's lots of... Okay, I'm just silly because I've been skipping over the first page. So I've only played it solo so far against AI. You can you can join the queue for a ranked game.
Ooh.
You can invite a friend to an unranked game. Or you can play locally against a friend or the AI. So there's lots of options. I have not played any online games. I should definitely do that. Yeah, because I played this on the cruise. So, of course, I just skipped over. I wasn't even looking at it. Honestly, I think I downloaded this the day before we left. So that is Stockpile. For today's thematic discussion, we're talking about games that have win or victory conditions that are not just solely most victory points wins. There are a lot of games where the win condition is whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. But there's a lot of games that don't. And I know for me personally, since I'm not very much of a Euro game player, a lot of the games I tend to love do not have points as a sole victory condition.
Yeah, and we're not going to say money, most money, that counts as points too. I think.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if there's a numerical value that people are acquiring throughout the course of the game or at the end of the game, and whoever has the most of that thing, that counts, obviously. But, I mean, there are some games that have that as an aspect, but then have other win conditions that are possible as well. Like Wonders Duel is a good example of that. Like, technically, there's a few different ways you can win that game. You can win via a military victory or a science victory, but if no one hits one of those conditions, then at the end of the game, you defer to victory points on the cards you've accumulated. And I think there's a few games that are kind of like that.
Yeah, I played one recently called Tulip Bubble. It's an economic game, but it's kind of like a race for someone to get the most money to be able to buy this black tulip, and whoever gets that wins. But if no one gets that, then whoever has the most money wins when it ends. So there's like multiple end conditions and multiple win conditions, I guess.
Yeah. There tend to be, I think there's some specific categories of games that could generally just be grouped into types of games that would fall into our determination here, our definition of non-victory point games. You wrote down some stuff in our notes, social deduction games.
Player elimination.
Cooperative games.
Some team games too.
That's true.
Like I was thinking Captain Sonar, but although like in Captain Sonar you're damaging the other submarine, so maybe that could be considered victory points because it's the first to 3 damage points maybe. But it doesn't really feel like that.
No, I would say it's actually more properly clarified as player elimination, but it's team elimination instead. Mm-hmm. So, because you have to kill the other submarine. Although I guess since there is no way to gain back health, then it's first to 3 hits or points too. And
because it's only 2 teams. Whereas in games with more players in player elimination, like Risk or something.
Oh yeah, like is a 2-player game ever player elimination? Or is it like chess technically? Like you have to corner the other person's king. Mm-hmm. So is that is that player elimination or like what?
Just winning.
Like it's just you've hit a win condition. But to me, that's not like it's definitely not victory points in that instance.
Yeah, chess is definitely not. Although I think people have a way of doing some sort of points during the middle of the game to see who's ahead. In chess,
wait, what?
I don't know. I'm not like a chess player, but I think people have like each piece is worth a point, or each piece is worth a different amount of points, so you can like this person's ahead by so much at a certain state in the game. So even if there aren't points in games, people will try to make there be points.
I like games where there are multiple paths to victory. I think sometimes in games that have a single win condition, whether that's points or otherwise, occasionally you run into that problem where one player's running away with it or everybody else is doing well and you're not doing well and you kind of feel like there's nothing you can do. And even if you're not like the type of person who has to win, it can be difficult to continue playing a game if you feel like you have no chance. So I feel like in games with multiple win conditions, it can kind of sometimes alleviate that problem. And I know it's expected of me, but I'm going to bring up Star Trek Ascendancy because like you can win by taking over the other player's homeworlds, which is by fighting and battles, or you can just build up a whole bunch of culture to gain ascendancy points. So in theory, if the other players are dueling it out and fighting each other on the other side of the board, you can just start exploring and finding more ways to generate culture. Like, there's ways to do things. Or even if somebody, like, wipes out your fleet, if you can still generate culture, you still have a path to victory in a game like that. And I think that that's important in especially longer games like that to make sure that there isn't somebody that's left in the dust necessarily. So...
yeah, and that just reminded me of Antiquity, which is a game I played at Dice Tower Con for the first time. And in that game, it's a civilization building game, but there are different victory conditions, and you don't choose it until the middle of the game. So you choose your own victory condition when you build a cathedral, and there are like 5 different ones to choose from. So you choose which saint you're going to worship, and then that determines what you want for the victory condition. So the victory condition that could be like you build all the buildings, or you have a bunch of people, or you've conquered this many people. So that was pretty unique.
That's really cool. So do you pick individually? Like everyone picks a different victory condition?
Yeah. You can pick the same as someone else, but yeah, you pick when you build your cathedral.
That's fascinating. And that's really neat too, because that actually ties directly into what I was just saying. Yeah, like if you're doing really poorly in one aspect of the game, but you can work on something else. Mm-hmm. Man, do I want to play Antiquity now? Like,
it's a splatter game. They're known for.
I'm just gonna keep making noises like that for a little while. me.
I really liked it.
I have a feeling this is the type of thing that my friend Greg would hear and be like, what, you want to play Antiquity? I'll bring Antiquity. Like, you've met Greg, you know. Yeah. Like, he would totally just be like, yeah, we should totally do that. But I'm not saying for sure I want to play it, but I'm at least casually interested in not avoiding it. How about that? Oh, that's the most wishy-washy answer I've probably ever given to anything. So that also then ties into other games that have asymmetric win conditions. So there are games where, not in the middle of it, but right from the get-go, the players have different winning conditions. One of my favorites of those is Rex, which was originally Dune, the fantasy flight game that is set in the Twilight Imperium universe. And yeah, all of the players have a different win condition. Like, it's interesting because like one of the players' win conditions is to bet on which round of the game will end and which player will win. And if they guess correctly, they win instead of the player who met their win condition. Like, that's fascinating to me. Like, they don't have to do... I mean, obviously, they'll probably use their gameplay to try and manipulate the game in the way they want it to go, but they don't actually have to do anything with themselves, theoretically. They just need to make sure the game ends at the time that they've guessed it will. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. That's interesting. That reminded me of Two Rooms of a Boom, which is social deduction and has alternate win conditions for everyone. Especially if you have gray rolls in there. They just, like, either Team Red wins or Team Blue wins, but then gray is not on any team, and they have special win conditions.
I still contend that my favorite game that I've ever played of Two Rooms and a Boom was the one at BlitzCon where we played with almost all gray rolls.
That was so funny.
That was amazing. And I wish I could play that game more often, but it feels like you have to have the right group and the right person leading it to make that game really work well. And
it
I
needs
don't
a lot
feel
of people.
Yes, and a lot of that also. Although at BGG-Con or Dice Tower West, we could probably make that happen. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's not one of those games that I, like, crave. Like, I don't like, I'm not compelled to seek it out, but I do enjoy it when I play it, so.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. And you recently talked on the podcast about Villainous, that new Disney-themed game that also had asymmetric win conditions, right?
Yeah.
So, like, Ursula had to do something.
Ursula had to get the crown and the trident and put it to her cave, and Captain
Which, like,
Hook
none of the other villains are looking for that stuff at all, right?
Yeah,
like,
because everyone has their own deck of cards, so it's
yeah,
very different. And the Captain Hook has to defeat Peter Pan, so that's completely different.
And there's also games that, instead of having a single winner, they have a single loser, which is unique in its own right. I would say the mass market version of that would be Jenga, because whoever knocks the tower over loses, and then everybody else wins? Like, okay, so here's an interesting question. Does a single person losing make everyone else a winner?
Cockroach Poker also has that, I think.
Like, where one person loses?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I marked everyone else as the winner in BG Stats, so yes.
Okay, so Ambie has declared it. I think it's interesting because, yeah, like, if you didn't do anything to cause your win, it just somebody else happened to lose. I don't know. It feels weird. Also, why are games like that popular? Like, especially like Jenga, which is geared towards children. Like, I admittedly, I know I played Jenga as a kid, and I don't remember feeling especially disheartened. Maybe because I usually played it 2-player.
Also, when I remember playing as a kid and not really caring about winning. Like, it wasn't really a game. It was just playing and then watching it fall over. And
yeah, it was just more like you were trying not to knock the tower over, but it wasn't for the sake of winning. It was just to not be the one that knocked the tower over.
Yeah, I definitely was not playing competitively when I was a child.
I was really good at Jenga. No, I don't know. I was probably bad at it. Like, does not sound like something that I would be good at, honestly. I haven't played Jenga in a while. I know they make those giant Jenga sets that, like, you can put in your backyard. They're made out of, like, giant blocks of wood. I've always been curious about the physics of those, because when you make things bigger, the physics often change. So
we actually, my dad made a giant Jenga set for my wedding.
Oh,
out
really?
Of 2x4s, yeah. I have a picture on my BGG page of people playing. They got it, like, It was insane. They had like 3 rows in a row where only the middle piece was there, and it was all like a leaning tower of Jenga.
What happened when it fell? Was everybody okay?
I don't remember. I don't think I saw it fall. I don't know.
Oh no, that's the best part though, especially with a giant one. Yeah, like I'd be curious. So do you remember, like, did it seem like it was working similarly to how a regular Jenga tower would work? Like,
yeah, I didn't actually play it, but it seemed like it was working fine. I don't know. I don't know if it's easier or they're just really good.
Okay, well then there you go.
I don't know.
There's other categories of games that are not victory points, like area control games, where just having the most of an area or the most things will win, or like having specific areas controlled at the end of a game. I will admit, I don't have a lot of knowledge about this one, but I was doing some research, and apparently the game Hera and Zeus has multiple loss conditions rather than multiple win conditions, which I found to be pretty interesting, although I don't know a lot about it. We said social deduction games fit into this pretty easily. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways you can win games. And I think people more think that victory points are the most common, and maybe they are just because of the sheer number of Euro games. But I would say that games with non-victory point win conditions have definitely been growing and are becoming far more prevalent in our hobby especially. For this week's etymology segment, I'm going to look at the origins of the word unique. The English word unique originated in the 16th century when it meant single or solitary. It can be traced back to the Middle French word of the same spelling, which finds its roots in the Latin unicus, meaning only, single, sole, or alone of its kind. That word came from the Latin word unus, meaning one. Going further back, the roots of these words came from the Proto-Indo-European root oino, which meant one. The definition of the word unique, meaning forming the only one of its kind, came about in the 1610s, while the definition meaning remarkable or uncommon didn't come about until the mid-19th century. Hopefully, you found this information and our discussion about victory conditions a pretty unique part of your day and your podcast feed.
And that's it for this week's Board Game Blitz. Visit our website, boardgameblitz.com, for video and blog content, as well as to get links to all our social media pages, including our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Board Game Geek Guild. This episode was sponsored by Grey Fox Games. Love Champions of Midgard and wish you could play in that world in other ways? Reavers of Midgard is coming to Kickstarter on November 1st, so set a reminder in your phone now and check it out. Grey Fox Games, quality games cleverly crafted. If you're enjoying the show, you can rate and review us on your podcast provider or consider becoming a patron. For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access to unedited episodes and our private Slack channel, which lets you chat with us and other Blitzketeers directly. Head to patreon.com/boardgameblitz to become a patron today. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Morrow. Technical support provided by Toby Mao. Board Game Blitz is part of the Dice Tower Network. Until next time, one of these games is not like the other. One of these games is especially long. Can you play a game that's not like the others, or should I sing another song? Bye, everyone!
Bye!
I took a... what is it called? Notebook.
I was like, what word is she trying to find here?
Love Champions of Midgard and wish you could... Sorry.
Love Champions of Midgard.
I was feeling that like halfway through the first paragraph.
The Vikings got her! She's been stabbed by the Reavers of Midgard! Everyone, go back the Kickstarter now!
Okay. Board Game Blitz is part of the... What is that?
Ahoy!
Board Game Blitz is part of the Dice. I almost said Nice baby. Tower Network. Ding, 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 I mean, ding, ding, they're ding, nice, yeah, but...
Dice Tower, baby. Ding, 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 ding.
Board Game Blitz is part of the Dice Tower Network. Yes, they are. Okay.
Yes, they are. I thought it's we. We are.
We are, yes. Sorry.
Alliteration! Oh, gosh. It's alliteration time, everybody. I wonder how many people don't stick around to the end of the episodes to hear this. They're probably lucky. So last week we asked you to re-theme a classic tile-based word game for loud television writers. So what game were we asking them to re-theme, Ambie?
Screaming Screenwriters Scrabble.
Yeah! We had some correct guesses for that one. So this week, we are asking you to re-theme a dual role social deduction game for some distant relatives that don't live in the city. Good luck, everybody!